Mom catches me wearing her heels. People often say the most dangerous lies are the ones we whisper to ourselves. I used to agree, though I didn't realize how deeply I was living inside one. I convinced myself I was cautious, that a closet was just for coats, not for hiding pieces of who I was. That slipping into her heels for a night meant nothing beyond a private indulgence. I told myself many things, until one quiet Saturday afternoon shattered all of them. It came down to a single sound, the sharp click of a heel against the floor, followed by the front door opening just a moment too soon. My name is Samir. I'm a junior architect, which means my life is built on precision. Lines drawn clean, emails crafted politely, dreams designed for other people to live in. My own life is far less grand. A modest studio apartment in an aging building just a couple blocks from work. A neglected plant. A drawer that keeps filling with clothes no one knows about. To everyone else, I'm dependable. Predictable, even. To Isabella, I'm the boyfriend who remembers schedules, who values stability, who finds comfort in routine. But when the lights go out, when the world stops watching, I become something else, someone else. For an hour, maybe more, I step into a version of myself that feels softer, freer, less confined by the rigid outlines of my daily life. It didn't start as anything serious. Just curiosity. A quiet experiment. The first time I tried lipstick, I was struck by how it reshaped my reflection. Mascara made my tired eyes look alive again. It felt like rebellion, not loud, not reckless, but personal. A contrast to the strict order of my work. I told myself it was harmless, just a private ritual. A small escape. But private rituals don't stay small forever. They grow, they deepen, they start asking questions. Isabella would call me practical. She likes structure, plans, things she can rely on. We met at an art gallery, she in a vivid red dress, like she belonged to a different world entirely. I remember being drawn to her laughter, to the way she carried herself so effortlessly. She works with art, lives among people who analyze emotion for a living. There's a certain clarity to her, a precision that mirrors my own in a different way. For 2 years, we built something steady. Predictable dinners, shared routines, quiet weekends. I loved how easy it felt. I loved that she never dug too deeply, never asked questions about the parts of me I kept hidden. That silence felt like safety. I told myself I wasn't lying, I was just not sharing everything. But there's a difference, and I knew it. Secrets have edges. Sooner or later, they cut. Still, I held on to both worlds. Out of fear, maybe. Or habit. Or the strange comfort I found in those moments when I became someone else. Someone gentler, braver than the version of me who spent his days drafting other people's lives. My apartment reflects that quiet duality. Functional, simple, shaped by necessity more than taste. Sunlight spills across the wooden floor. A shelf lined with architecture magazines. A photo of Isabella and me, her leaning into me, both of us smiling like everything is exactly as it should be. It all feels stable. Permanent even. Until it doesn't. That Saturday was meant to be calm. I had time to myself, a chance to prepare. Isabella had invited me to a charity event the following weekend. I'd agreed to go, to stand beside her, to support her world the way she supported mine. But I didn't want to go as just Samir, not entirely. So I planned something new, something subtle, a look that leaned feminine without drawing attention. Not a statement, just a quiet experiment, a rehearsal of sorts, a small step towards something I wasn't ready to name, but couldn't ignore anymore. I had tucked everything away beneath the bed, hidden under neatly folded sheets, my small secret world concealed in plain sight. Isabella's heels were there too, the same pair she once laughed about, calling them too daring for me. Alongside them, a simple black dress I'd ordered in secrecy, and a wig that still carried the faint, artificial scent of a salon whenever I inhaled too closely. Sitting at my little vanity, I held a hand mirror in one hand and a brush in the other, letting the ritual take over. It moved through me slowly, like waves finding their rhythm. Foundation smoothed my skin into something unfamiliar, almost like priming a blank surface. Mascara stretched my lashes outward, precise and deliberate, like lines extending beyond a blueprint. When I slipped into the dress, it shaped my body in ways I wasn't used to, and the heels lifted me, forcing my posture to adjust, my spine to relearn itself. For those stolen hours, I practiced being someone else. And in that practice, everything shifted. The way I stood, the way I let out a laugh, even the way I imagined holding a glass. Each movement carried a quiet confidence I didn't recognize in my everyday self. There was no shame in it, only a strange, steady clarity. It felt less like pretending and more like rehearsing a truth I didn't yet have the courage to say out loud. But beneath that clarity, something else lingered. Fear. Not sharp or sudden, but constant, so familiar it had blended into routine. Fear of being discovered. Fear of Isabella seeing me like this, her gaze no longer soft but searching. I worried about what I might find in her expression, confusion, disappointment, or worse, a quiet withdrawal that would put distance between us without a word. Still, I told myself stories to stay steady. That she would be curious, maybe surprised, but never unkind. That she would try to understand. I built those reassurances carefully, the same way I built designs, layer by layer, balanced on belief. But belief, I would learn, isn't always strong. That morning, Isabella had mentioned meeting a client, something last minute, something that meant she might be home earlier than usual. I checked the time again and again, each glance convincing me I still had space. 30 minutes. Maybe an hour. Enough. Or so I thought. It's strange how quickly time can collapse. What felt like a safe pocket of privacy suddenly tightened, shrinking into something fragile. A thought crept in. What if she came back now? What if the door opened and the light shifted, and I wasn't Samir standing there, but the version of me I had only practiced in silence? I stared at my reflection, frozen, as if I could calculate every possible outcome, like inspecting a structure for cracks before it failed. Then my phone buzzed. A message from her. Running ahead. Home soon. The words landed heavier than they should have, each one echoing like a footstep getting closer. My chest tightened. I told myself to move, to undo everything, to wipe it all away, to fold the dress and disappear back into something safe. Jeans. A hoodie. The version of me the world already understood. But moments like that don't just test your plans. They test you. And I hesitated. Longer than I should have. That pause, that tiny, fragile hesitation, became the turning point of everything. It was so small, almost harmless, yet it held the weight of two futures, one leading to honesty, the other to collapse. I convinced myself I still had time. 60 seconds, maybe less. Enough to erase the evidence, to return to normal. I trusted my hands, their speed, the routine I had practiced. I trusted the quiet hallway, the predictable rhythm of the building. I clung to these small certainties, so I wouldn't have to face the larger truth waiting just beyond them. Then the door clicked. Not late, not on time, early. The sound cut through the apartment, sharp, final, ordinary in any other moment. But not this one. Time seemed to stumble like something dropped and rolling out of reach. In the mirror, I saw myself split in two. One version in heels, composed and unfamiliar. The other still lingering somewhere behind him, dressed in comfort and denial. Between them stretched a distance I had never fully crossed until now. When she stepped inside, I noticed her the way you notice a shift in weather, instinctively, before thought catches up. At first, there was no judgment, just presence. Then her eyes began to take in the details, the dress, the wig, the posture that didn't belong to the version of me she knew. Her phone was still in her hand, its glow faint, almost like it was holding its own secret. What moved across her face was impossible to name in a single word. Surprise, yes. But also curiosity. Something softer, almost like recognition. And then something heavier. A question forming before it was spoken. A silence gathering, deciding how that question would live between us. That was the moment everything shifted. The quiet Saturday I had wrapped in safety unraveled in an instant. The private ritual I had guarded so carefully stepped out into the open, reshaping the structure of my life in ways I couldn't yet understand. It stopped being about whether I would continue hiding or whether she would stay. It became about something deeper. What happens when the person you love truly sees you and has to decide what that means? I'll never forget that moment. The one that felt like it could break everything. I stood there, fully exposed, not just in appearance but in truth. The heels, the lipstick, the dress, they weren't just objects anymore. They were evidence of something I had never said out loud. And when the door opened, it didn't just let her in, it tore something open inside me. I froze. The room felt different, colder somehow. And when our eyes met, it felt like everything, my identity, my secrets, my future, collapsed into a single, fragile breath. But that moment wasn't the true beginning. The storm had already started long before the door ever opened. It began earlier that day, in the quiet comfort that made me careless. The kind of stillness that convinces you nothing will go wrong. I should have recognized it for what it was, a false sense of safety. Because for weeks, something inside me had been growing. Not just curiosity anymore, but a pull. A need to go further than I ever had before. To step beyond the cautious version of myself that only existed in shadows, and into something more real. Something I had kept buried beneath folded clothes and careful excuses. And that day, I let that part of me come out without thinking about what might follow. There was a part of me, quiet, buried, that only wanted one thing: to breathe. And that day, for the first time, I let it. I told myself I'd keep it small. Just one piece, nothing more. But curiosity doesn't stay contained, especially when it's been ignored for so long. The moment I opened the drawer, it all came rushing back. The soft fabrics, the hidden pieces, the silent outline of a second self I had built in secret. It felt like they had been waiting. My hand hovered over the dress for only a second before I picked it up. The fabric slid over my skin, cool and unfamiliar, and my breath caught in my throat. Every time I dressed, something inside me shifted, like I was stepping into alignment with a truth I had never allowed the world to see. Then came the makeup. Foundation softened the edges of my face. Eyeliner gave my eyes a sharpness, a presence. And the lipstick was something else entirely. It was both terrifying and freeing. Every stroke felt like admitting something I had never said out loud. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, emotion hit all at once. Excitement tangled with guilt, longing wrapped in fear. My hands trembled under the weight of it. But the moment I stepped into her heels, my mother's heels, the ones she wore to important meetings and polished dinners, something surged through me. They felt powerful, forbidden. The sharp click against the wooden floor echoed through the apartment like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. I knew it was risky. I knew I shouldn't be touching her things. But I didn't stop. Sunlight filtered through the curtains in soft streaks, the outside world calm and ordinary. Inside, though, everything felt electric. The secrecy, the danger, it made the moment feel alive. And for the first time, I realized something unsettling. I didn't want to hide anymore. Not from myself. I moved through the living room slowly, testing each step in those heels, adjusting the way I held myself. The dress brushed against my legs, unfamiliar, but somehow right. Every movement felt like learning a new language. Awkward at first, but deeply natural underneath. This wasn't just a quick escape anymore. Not a stolen moment in the dark. This was something more. My heartbeat fell into rhythm with each step. My breathing steadied. The fear that had always hovered at the edges faded quietly into the background. And that was the mistake. Because while I was lost in that version of myself, lost in her, I forgot something simple. My mother wasn't supposed to be home. At first, it was just a faint noise outside. So ordinary, I didn't think twice. Then footsteps. My heart reacted, but my mind dismissed it. A neighbor. A delivery. Nothing important. I kept adjusting the wig, smoothing the dress, staring at the reflection of someone I was only beginning to understand. Then I heard it. The sound of a key sliding into the lock. It cut through everything. My body went cold instantly. That sound didn't belong to anyone else. There was no confusion this time. It was her. I turned toward the door, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my chest. Panic surged through me, sharp and immediate. For a second, I tried to lie to myself. She won't come in.
She'll get distracted.
Something will happen. But nothing did. The handle turned. Time slowed to a crawl. My mind raced, screaming at me to move, to run, to hide, to undo everything. But my body wouldn't listen. Heels don't let you run. Dresses don't disappear in seconds. Wigs don't vanish because you wish they would. Before she even stepped inside, I understood the truth. I was trapped. The door creaked open just a little. Light from the hallway spilled across the floor. Her silhouette appeared in the gap, and in that moment, something inside me cracked open. The version of me I had hidden for so long was about to be seen. Not partially. Not safely.
Completely.
The door opened wider. Our eyes met. Shock flickered across her face, followed by disbelief, confusion, emotions crashing into each other all at once. Everything I had buried for years rose to the surface in that single, frozen moment. Then softly, almost like she didn't believe it herself, she spoke. You? Neither of us moved. Her hand stayed on the doorknob. Mine hovered near my chest, as if I could steady the storm inside me. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with questions, fear, and something neither of us could name yet.
She wasn't just looking at me.
She was seeing everything. The unsteady way I stood in her heels. The wig slightly out of place. The lipstick I had watched her apply so many times. The dress shaping a body she knew, but not like this. It was too much. For both of us. The world shrank to that doorway, to that single moment where her reality collided with my secret. How long? She finally asked, her voice quiet but weighted with confusion. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? Was it curiosity? A phase? Something deeper? I didn't have the words. How could I give them to her? My throat tightened. My chest burned. I'm sorry. That was all I could say. She blinked slowly, like someone trying to wake from something unreal. For what? Her voice cracked at the end, fragile and sharp at the same time. Those two words cut deeper than anger ever could. For what? For being her child? For becoming someone she didn't recognize? For wearing her things? For hiding? For telling the truth too late? Or was it something even heavier, something neither of us could fully name? I didn't have an answer. And she didn't look angry.
Not yet. Just lost.
Overwhelmed. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The soft click felt final, like a line had been drawn. As she moved closer, the room seemed to shrink with every step. I instinctively backed away, my heels tapping unevenly against the floor. Suddenly, everything felt wrong. The wig too heavy, the lipstick bitter on my lips, the dress clinging too tightly, like it wanted to trap me instead of free me. Take a breath. I hadn't even realized I was struggling to breathe until she said it. I pulled in air too quickly, too sharply. She lifted her hand, hesitating, her fingers hovering near my shoulder. But then she stopped herself and pulled back. That hesitation hurt more than anything. She wanted to comfort me. I could see it, but she didn't know if she should. Like touching me might mean accepting something she wasn't ready to face. Her eyes searched me, full of questions she couldn't form. And inside me, there was only one answer. I don't know either. My knees wavered slightly, and she noticed instantly. Sit, please, she said, her voice softening, that familiar motherly tone slipping through the confusion. But I shook my head. I couldn't sit. I couldn't move. I couldn't bear the way her eyes followed every detail of me, trying to understand. I didn't mean for you to see me like this, I whispered, the words breaking apart as they left me. She exhaled shakily. And when she spoke again, there was no anger, just something raw, something honest. When was I supposed to see the real you?
Real.
That word hit hard. Which one was real? The version in front of her now, or the one who had spent years hiding? I didn't know anymore. She looked at me longer this time, her gaze softening in small, uncertain ways, as if she were trying to connect the person she raised with the one standing before her now. The silence pressed in again. Then she asked quietly, "Why my clothes?" I hesitated. The truth felt too exposed, too vulnerable to say out loud. I looked away, then back at her. They make me feel different, I admitted. Her brow furrowed, not in judgment, but confusion. Different how? I couldn't hold her gaze this time. Calmer, I said softly. More like myself. Like the version of me I can't be outside. The silence that followed changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It felt like she was actually hearing me, trying to understand instead of react. She stepped a little closer. I stayed where I was. Her eyes searched my face, taking in the makeup, the wig, the way my shoulders trembled. Something shifted in her expression. Pain, yes, but also something gentler, something uncertain. She paused, struggling with the words. Do you feel like a girl? I closed my eyes. Not because it was the wrong question, but because it didn't have a simple answer. I don't know, I said quietly. Her breath caught slightly at that. It was the only truth I had. I didn't always feel like a girl. I didn't fully feel like a boy either. I just felt like me. Someone who didn't fit neatly into the roles people expected. Someone who found pieces of themselves in places they weren't supposed to look. She was silent for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, I wish you had told me. My chest tightened at her words. I was scared. I admitted. I didn't want you to think I was weird. She finished gently. Broken. I whispered. Her eyes widened, her breath catching. And for the first time since she walked through the door, something warm flickered in her expression. Pain, yes, but also protectiveness. Hey, she said softly, stepping a little closer. You're not broken. Her voice trembled. You're scared and confused and brave, and I wish you didn't have to deal with this alone. The words hit so hard I almost stumbled. Tears welled up in my eyes before I could stop them. I didn't want to disappoint you. She shook her head slowly, heartbreak tightening her features. Oh, sweetheart, you could never disappoint me, but you scared me today. Not because of what you're wearing, but because you thought you had to hide this from me. Her voice cracked, and that means I failed somewhere. My breath hitched. No, you didn't fail. But she wasn't convinced. And somewhere behind her softness, behind her trembling voice, behind the attempt to understand, I could feel the tension rising. The questions she wasn't saying, the emotions she was struggling to control, the fear that things were about to change forever. Because even though she wasn't yelling, even though she wasn't angry, even though she was trying to understand, I could feel it. This was only the beginning. The storm hadn't hit yet. It was just gathering strength. The room felt smaller, almost suffocating. Every inch of space seemed charged with unspoken words and restrained emotions. Mom was still standing there, her eyes never leaving me, trying to understand, trying not to judge. And yet, the sheer intensity of her gaze made me feel like I was being dissected. I wanted to shrink into the floor. I wanted to disappear into the shadows. I wanted to run, but the heels made every step allowed. Awkward confession. I was painfully aware of each click, each sway, each movement that betrayed me. I took a tentative step backward, as if the distance could protect me from her perception. My breath came in shallow bursts. My heart slammed against my ribs as if it was begging me to escape the inevitable confrontation. Samir, she said again, her voice soft but firm. You can sit down, please. Let's talk like adults. I hesitated. Sitting down would mean vulnerability. Sitting down would mean showing her the full weight of my secret without pretense. But standing here, frozen in heels and makeup left me exposed anyway. There was no safe option. I lowered myself to the couch, feeling the unfamiliar sway of the dress against my legs, the heels digging slightly into my feet, as if reminding me that every choice carries a cost. She sat opposite me, careful, deliberate, keeping a small, safe distance. It was like watching a tightrope walker, careful, balanced, trying not to fall. I realized then that we were both walking the same line. She had just as much fear as I did, though it was rooted in love and confusion rather than self-expression. The silence stretched thick and heavy, almost unbearable. "I never imagined," she started, trailing off, words fumbling as she tried to find footing. "I mean, I know you've been experimenting. I've noticed little things before," but her voice cracked. "I didn't realize it was like this." The admission hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament. Fragile and dangerous. One wrong move, and it could shatter completely. I wanted to explain. I wanted to justify. I wanted to make her understand that this wasn't about disrespect or rebellion. It was about self-discovery, about exploring a side of myself I never knew could breathe freely. It's not like I planned for you to see me like this. I just wanted to feel like myself," I whispered, the words barely making it out. "In private. I never meant to shock you." She pressed her lips together, letting out a slow breath as she tried to take it in. Her head nodded faintly, but her eyes told a different story. Questions, worry, something unsettled building beneath the surface. "So you weren't hiding because you were ashamed?" she asked carefully. "Or because you were afraid of me?" I went still. "Both," I admitted after a moment. "I was scared, but not of you. I was scared of losing myself, of being judged, of becoming something I don't even fully understand yet." She leaned back slightly, folding her hands in her lap, as if she needed a second to steady herself. The tension eased just a little, thin, fragile, but there. "You've always been creative," she said quietly. "Curious. Imaginative. I've seen that in you since you were little." Her voice softened. "But this is different. It's not hidden. It's visible. It's vulnerable." I swallowed and nodded. Vulnerable. That was exactly it. This wasn't just something I did anymore. It was something I was showing. A part of me no one had ever really seen. Not even Isabella. Her gaze dropped slightly, then lifted again. "And the heels," she murmured. "You're wearing mine?" Guilt hit me instantly, cold and sharp. I winced. "I didn't think." "You didn't think," she cut in, though her tone wasn't harsh.
Just honest.
Then she exhaled softly. "Maybe you should have." There was a pause. "But," she added, her voice quieter now, "I can't ignore something." I looked up, confused. "You look confident," she said slowly, almost like she was surprising herself. "There's something strong about the way you're standing. It's unsettling, yes, but I can see it." Her words landed in a way I wasn't prepared for. Confidence.
Strength.
Those weren't things I expected to hear from her. Not here. Not like this. And yet, something shifted inside me. Beneath the embarrassment, beneath the fear, there was a flicker of something unexpected. Relief. Maybe even a small, fragile sense of being seen. But it didn't last long. Doubt crept back in almost immediately. Would Isabella ever look at me like that? Would she understand? Would she even want to? The room suddenly felt smaller. The sunlight stretched across the floor, catching on the heels, reflecting faintly against the dress. The shadows looked uneven, like cracks forming in something I had tried so hard to keep whole. "I need to ask you something," my mother said after a moment, her voice steady now, more grounded. I looked up. "Are you happy like this?" The question caught me off guard. Happy. It felt like a heavy word, too big, too complicated. I hesitated. Could I say it? Could I admit that this version of me, felt more real than anything else? "I think I am," I said finally, my voice unsteady. "When I'm like this, I feel right, like I can actually breathe." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, something like surprise flickering across her face. Maybe even understanding. But then her expression shifted again. "But are you safe?" she asked. "Do you understand what this could mean? The risks?" And just like that, the moment changed. She wasn't judging me. She was worried. Reality rushed back in, heavy and unavoidable. I looked down at my legs, the slight tremble I couldn't control, the heels that suddenly felt louder with every small movement. "What if someone finds out?" I asked quietly. "What if, Isabella?" Her face softened in a way that almost hurt to see. "Then we face it," she said gently. "Together." She leaned forward slightly, her voice firm but full of care. But you have to understand this isn't just about clothes. It's about your safety, your heart, your mind. And I don't want you stuck in a place where you're torn between who you are and what you're afraid of.
Trapped.
That word settled heavily inside me, because that's exactly what it felt like. Trapped between fear and freedom, between silence and truth, between the person I had always been and the one I was just beginning to understand. What had once been hidden was no longer safely tucked away. It had stepped into the light, and there was no putting it back the same way again. The rest of the afternoon moved carefully, almost delicately, like we were both learning new steps to a dance neither of us had practiced before. She asked questions, but never harshly, always gently, as if she were testing the edges of something fragile. She didn't judge. She didn't lecture. She listened, and I talked. For the first time, I put it into words, why I dressed, what it gave me, the quiet sense of relief, the identity I explored in private, and the constant fear that someone would reject me if they ever knew. Every sentence felt like stepping forward on uncertain ground, risking a fall. Her reactions were small but meaningful, a slight raise of her brow, a slow nod, her fingers resting against her lips as she absorbed it all. It told me she was trying to understand, trying to see me beyond the expectations she had always known. By the time evening crept in, nothing was fully resolved. The tension hadn't disappeared, but it had changed. What once felt like pure fear had softened into something more complex. Understanding, curiosity, a fragile kind of acceptance. Still uncertain, still delicate, but different. And I knew, deep down, this wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The real challenge wasn't surviving that moment with her. It was figuring out how to exist in the world now that someone had truly seen me. Even as she stepped back, giving me space to breathe and process, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me had become louder, sharper. The faint creak of a neighbor's floor, the distant hum of traffic, every sound felt like a warning. I was hyper-aware of everything. And then,
The phone rang.
I froze instantly, my breath catching in my chest. The sound cut through the room like a signal I wasn't ready to answer. She glanced at it, frowning slightly but didn't move. Her presence was steady, calm, but I could feel that she now carried part of this secret with me. My hand hovered over the phone. My fingers trembled against the fabric of the dress. Even the soft tap of my heel against the floor felt too loud, like a countdown ticking down to something inevitable. Answer it, she said quietly. There was no panic in her voice, just quiet insistence. The kind that comes from someone who cares too much to let you hide. I swallowed and picked it up. Isabella. My stomach dropped. Oh no, I muttered under my breath. For a second, I didn't know what to do. Ignore it? Answer casually? Pretend everything was normal? None of it felt safe. Hello, I said, my voice cracking just enough to betray me. Hey, Samir. Are you home? I finished early, Isabella said. Then she paused. Wait, why does it sound like someone's with you? Panic surged through me, fast and overwhelming. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mother go completely still, her attention locked on me now, sharp, alert, ready. Yeah, I'm home, I said quickly. Just cleaning up a bit. The lie felt thin the moment it left my mouth. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Isabella said. Actually, maybe sooner. Traffic's weird today. 10 minutes. Maybe less. My pulse spiked. 10 minutes to undo everything. I ended the call, trying to steady my breathing. My mother met my eyes and gave a small, knowing look. She didn't scold.
She didn't panic.
You have 10 minutes, she said softly. Go. That was all. 10 minutes. My mind screamed at me to move, to fix it, hide it, erase it. I reached for the wig first, pulling it off with shaking hands. Then the dress. Then the heels. Every movement felt rushed but precise, like I was racing against something invisible closing in on me. Every sound seemed louder than it should be. The rustle of fabric, my own breathing, the faint click of the heels as I set them aside. She moved beside me without a word, helping, handing me clothes, watching the door like she was guarding it. In that moment, something unexpected hit me. Gratitude. She could have reacted so differently, could have panicked, judged, pulled away. But instead, she helped. Like we were in this together. I pulled on my jeans and t-shirt, my hands still unsteady. I wiped the last traces of makeup from my face, watching as the reflection in the mirror shifted back into the version of me the world recognized. Samir.
Quiet.
Careful. Predictable. But inside, nothing had gone back to normal. The part of me that had stood there in heels and silk was still alive, still present, just hidden again. Waiting. The doorbell rang. My heart skipped. That was it. Time was up. Samir, you ready? My mother asked quietly. Her voice was calm, but I could feel the tension beneath it, like something stretched too tight. Yeah, I said, though I wasn't sure if it was true. Though my voice sounded hollow even to me, I opened the door to Isabella. She smiled, completely unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. But that smile, it ignited a storm of conflicting emotions inside me. Guilt, fear, shame, longing, desire, and something fragile I couldn't name. We stepped into the living room, and I forced myself to act casual, folding panic into the motions of greeting her. Every breath, every shift of weight, every glance felt like a test. Every shadow, every flicker of light could betray me. Then, as I began to believe the illusion of normalcy might hold, Isabella tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Why do you look different?" she asked. It was casual, almost teasing, yet pointed. Like she sensed something was off, but couldn't put her finger on it. My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, ready to lie, to deflect, to laugh it off. But my mother's presence reminded me that nothing could be hidden now. The secret had escaped. Truth was close, trembling at the edges of every word I might speak. "Nothing, just trying something new," I said finally, my voice low, careful, fragile. She smiled, but her gaze lingered, probing deeper, peeling at the thin layers of calm I had forced over my panic. The tension didn't fade. If anything, it thickened, threading through the apartment, through every heartbeat, through the quiet tap of my shoes as I tried to act normal. I realized then, this wasn't just a secret anymore. It had become something alive, something that could slip, unravel, and undo all I had built if I wasn't careful. And the worst part? The version of me that had existed in heels, silk, and makeup, the one that felt real and alive, was still there, just below the surface. Deep down, part of me wanted her to see it. The air felt charged, electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Each second stretched, every heartbeat counting down. Isabella sat on the couch, chatting casually about her day, but her eyes kept darting toward me, curious, searching, unconsciously probing. I felt it in my chest. Every glance, every laugh, every subtle movement carried the weight of exposure. I forced a laugh, nodded, moved as naturally as I could, but the silk of anxiety clung tighter than any dress ever had. My hands itched, my stomach twisted, my mind raced. Every instinct screamed, "She knows. She can feel it. She's close." And then I understood the real danger wasn't my mother knowing anymore. It was Isabella, the one person whose opinion mattered most, whose judgment could crush or elevate me in ways I didn't yet understand. I excused myself, claiming I needed something from the kitchen. The moment I stepped away, my mind spun. So careful, so secretive, yet the thrill, the fear, the adrenaline had pushed me closer to exposure than ever. In the kitchen, my reflection caught me in the window. My hands shook. My hair, though normal again, felt strange. My bare skin felt raw. My identity, hidden beneath casual clothing, throbbed like a heartbeat I couldn't control. I thought of the heels, the dress, the wig, the lipstick, the way my mother had seen me, and how Isabella might see me if I made the slightest mistake. Every risk, every secret, every forbidden thrill led to this fragile precipice. A creak from the front door made my pulse double. Ordinary in any other context, it sounded like a gunshot now. My mother had retreated, leaving me alone with a storm I wasn't ready for. I could hear Isabella's steps approaching, edging closer to the threshold of discovery. "You okay?" Her voice floated from the living room, casual, soft but probing. She sensed the tension. I nodded, though I wasn't. My body screamed alert, hyper-aware. My heart hammered like a trapped animal. Every fiber of me wanted to run, but my mind froze, stuck between fear and desire.
And then I saw it.
A heel. One of my mother's, left in the corner, forgotten in the chaos of changing back. It rested there like a silent witness, a symbol of my secret, my transformation, my forbidden self. Waiting. Watching. My stomach sank. My hands froze mid-motion. One careless glance, one wrong word, and everything could unravel. I glanced at Isabella. She had risen, curious, eyes sliding toward the corner. Her expression flickered. Recognition? Surprise? Suspicion? "Is that?" she began, hesitant, trailing off as if unsure she wanted to know the answer. Panic surged. I lunged forward, pretending to adjust something on the counter, hiding the heel with my body. My hands shook violently. "Oh, just a shoe," I stammered. Too loud, too fast. Isabella's head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing, scanning me like she could read the tremor in my thoughts. That look, the one that pierced through pretense, through fear, through every carefully constructed lie, made my pulse spike violently. My mind raced. She's going to know.
She's going to see.
It's over. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. A tiny, almost imperceptible curve of her lips, like she was humoring me, or perhaps testing the boundaries of what she sensed. "You're hiding something," she said quietly. Not a shout, not an accusation. Just that simple, loaded statement, carrying the weight of revelation, of exposure, of danger. My chest tightened. My hands shook. My stomach churned. I tried to laugh it off. "No, of course not," I stammered, my voice cracking despite the effort. But I knew. Somehow she already knew. And that awareness, that sharp recognition of my secret, thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. The heater clicked on, as if mocking my panic. The sudden, mundane sound echoed through the apartment, intrusive and loud, making me flinch. Isabella glanced at it briefly, then back at me. The tension didn't dissipate, it sharpened. Mom remained in her corner, silent and watchful, grounding me yet reminding me there was no escape. The apartment seemed to shrink around us, every second stretching, every tick of the clock a countdown. Every breath, every movement felt magnified, poised on the knife edge of discovery. And then it hit me, something I hadn't fully admitted even to myself. I wanted her to see me. I wanted her to understand, to witness, to accept the part of me I had hidden for so long. But terror coiled in my chest. The truth was raw, fragile, dangerous. And once it spilled into the world, there was no undoing it. My gaze fell to the single heel left on the floor, a silent emblem of my double life. My identity teetered between secrecy and revelation, my fear and longing wound together in a storm I could neither stop nor escape. The apartment, the room, even I seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Then the front door clicked again. Another key turned. My stomach sank to the floor. This next arrival could change everything. And I knew, with a cold certainty, that there would be no retreat. The door swung open, and my world froze. Not Isabella this time. Aunt Navila, Mom's older sister, stepped in. Her eyes, sharp and unflinching, swept over me in a single glance. Even in the remnants of my crowd dressing, wig half in hand, a faint smudge of lipstick still lingering, the faint scent of Mom's perfume on my skin, she stopped dead. "Samir," her voice was calm, controlled, but every syllable carried a piercing edge. "What on earth?" I opened my mouth, tried to explain, then closed it again. Words failed me entirely. Before I could even begin, Mom stepped forward, bridging the gap between exposure and confrontation. She placed a steady hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "It's okay," Mom whispered. "You need to hear him out." My chest tightened, panic curling up my spine. It wasn't judgment I feared. It was exposure, the unraveling of the secret world I had meticulously crafted over years. Every quiet hour, every hidden dress and brush of lipstick, every careful step in heels, it all felt like it might come crashing down. Aunt Navila's eyes sharpened. I don't understand, this isn't just a dress, is it? I shook my head. The weight of truth pressed down like a physical force, each heartbeat echoing in my ears. My double life, carefully compartmentalized, was unspooling in front of the most important women in my life. Every piece of silk, every smudge of makeup, a testament to the parts of me no one had ever seen. You're crowd dressing? Aunt Navila asked cautiously, as if even saying the words could ignite a fire. Mom nodded slowly.
Yes.
It's been part of him for a long time. He's not doing anything wrong. He's exploring himself. I tried to explain, but my voice felt thin, inadequate. My hands shook. It's who I am when I express myself like this. It's not a phase. You're wearing my clothes, Aunt Navila cut in sharply, gesturing at the heels abandoned on the floor. Her tone was incredulous, but not cruel. And the makeup, the wig, this isn't just experimenting. This is bold. Risky. That word landed in my chest like a hammer. Risky. Every second had been risky. Every heartbeat. Every hidden thrill. And now, standing here with two of the most important women in my life, the stakes felt unbearably high. I wanted to vanish, sink back into shadows where no one could see the parts of me that were raw and exposed. But the heels, the dress, the lipstick, they weren't just clothing. They were proof. A declaration. A truth I could no longer hide. Then Isabella appeared, stepping silently from the living room. Her eyes widened, taking in the heels, the wig in my trembling hands, the faint lipstick on my lips, and the fear etched across my face. "Samir, what's going on?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with suspicion. Time seemed to slow. Every gaze pinned me, Mom's quiet understanding, Aunt Navila's sharp scrutiny, Isabella's cautious curiosity. My body trembled. Every secret, every hidden fragment of myself was suddenly exposed. There was no retreat. I swallowed hard, voice shaking. I need you to understand. This isn't about anyone else. This is me. When I'm alone, when I'm myself, I want you to see me. All of me. Silence filled the room. My heart hammered like a drum in my chest. Aunt Navila's eyes softened slightly, though her expression remained wary. "You're brave," she said finally, "and maybe a little reckless."
Mom squeezed my hand gently.
"It's okay to be brave," she said softly. "You've always been your own way. This is just another part of you. I don't fully understand it, but I accept it." Relief surged, fighting against the adrenaline and fear still coursing through me. My secret was no longer hidden, but maybe, just maybe, that was okay. Then Isabella stepped closer, eyes scanning me carefully. "So, you've been hiding this from me?" she asked, calm but deliberate.
"Why?"
"Afraid of what I'd think." "Yes," I admitted, voice barely a whisper. Her voice trembled slightly, breaking as she spoke. "Afraid I'd see you differently? Afraid I'd reject you?" Her gaze softened, but the intensity behind it lingered, sharp and probing. "I may have questions. I may be confused, but I want to know you. All of you. Not just the version that fits neatly into the world." Her words struck me harder than I expected. Relief mingled with fear, validation tangled with vulnerability, desire entwined with tension. And in that suspended heartbeat, I realized something astonishing. The world hadn't ended. My identity hadn't shattered. My secret hadn't destroyed everything. But the stakes were real now. The risk of exposure was immediate, unavoidable, and intoxicating. Deep inside, I felt it. The thrill, the danger, the pure truth of finally living authentically, even if the world wasn't ready. The room seemed to hold its breath. Every glance, every heartbeat, every unspoken recognition thickened the air with suspense. Then another sound. The front door clicked again. Another arrival. My chest tightened. The door swung open forcefully this time, and my heart froze mid-beat. A shadow loomed in the doorway, large and imposing. Uncle Fel, Mom's older brother, stepped in, known for his sharp, no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of man who could smell lies before they were spoken. "Everyone okay in here?" His voice was casual, but the underlying edge made me flinch. He paused mid-step, surveying the scene, Mom calm, Aunt Navila skeptical, Isabella frozen, and me, standing caught between exposure and fear. The wig clutched in my hands, the faint lipstick smear, the heels abandoned on the floor, all screamed, secret revealed. I wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor, to rewind every moment that led to this. Yeah, I stammered, voice trembling. "Everything's fine. Just talking." But he didn't move. His eyes locked onto me, scanning sharply, questioning, unyielding. "I don't know," Aunt Navila said quietly, a warning in her tone. "Something feels off." Tension swelled, pressing down like a tidal wave ready to crash. My pulse thundered, my hands shook violently, clutching the wig like a lifeline. The heels on the floor glimmered ominously, silent witnesses to my hidden life. Uncle Fel's gaze swept over the room, lingering on Mom. "And you're okay with this?" Mom exhaled, calm but firm.
Yes.
"We need to understand him. We need to let him speak." I swallowed hard, words barely forming. I can explain, but... Before I could continue, Isabella stepped closer, her eyes searching, probing, insistent. "Samir, please, tell me everything. I want to understand." The room shrank around me. Every look, every unspoken judgment pressed against me like invisible walls. My secret life, the private, hidden world I'd nurtured, was colliding head-on with reality. I drew in a shaky breath. "I crowd-dress. I wear clothes, makeup, heels sometimes to feel like me.
To feel right.
Not to shock anyone. Not to disrespect anyone. I just need it." Silence felt like a weight. Uncle Fel froze mid-step. Mom's hand stayed on mine, firm, grounding, supportive, letting me face the truth. Aunt Navila's eyebrows drew together, lips pressed tight. Isabella's eyes shimmered with shock, curiosity, and the faintest hint of understanding. Finally, Uncle Fel stepped forward. His gaze softened, just slightly, though the edge never fully left.
"It's bold," he said at last.
"Maybe reckless, but it's you. And you need to be true to yourself." Relief washed through me, tangled with a fresh surge of anxiety. The storm wasn't over. Anything could happen: neighbors, phone calls, interruptions. Every second felt like balancing on a razor's edge. Then, a sudden click. The phone on the counter unlocked. I hadn't even noticed it, but now the sound felt like a siren. My hands flew to my face, but too late. A new message glowed across the screen, an urgent work email. The email was flagged urgent, marked high priority. My pulse spiked, a surge of panic pressing down like heavy heels on my chest. One misstep, one careless word, and everything, the secret I'd guarded, the fragile trust, the delicate balance of relationships, could shatter in an instant. Isabella leaned a little closer, her voice steady yet soft. "Samir, I don't care about the clothes. I care about you, but you have to be honest. No more hiding. No more pretending." Her words hit me like a thunderclap. Desire, fear, and vulnerability collided violently in my chest. I ached to spill everything, to reveal every hidden corner of myself, to show her the world I had lived in silence. But the stakes, the exposure, the risk of judgment kept my mouth sealed. Mom's hand tightened around mine. "He's telling the truth," she said firmly. "We'll figure this out together." Before I could exhale, Aunt Navila leaned forward, her voice low, conspiratorial. "Do you realize the neighbors could see? Someone could find out." The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. Every fear I'd carried, the imagined whispers, the judgment, the exposure, felt suddenly immediate, alive, unavoidable. I scanned the room. Mom's calm reassurance, Aunt Navila's cautious scrutiny, Isabella's intense, probing gaze, Uncle Fell's tentative acceptance, and me, trapped in the middle, suspended between two identities, two realities. And then came the knock. Not casual, not accidental, intentional. My heart froze mid-beat. The room collectively held its breath. Every eye locked toward the door. Time seemed to stretch, each second taut, waiting, warning. I realized then that the climax wasn't just for my secret. It was for everything I'd hidden, everything I'd feared, everything I'd longed to reveal. The door clicked slowly, deliberately, swinging open to reveal the last person I expected. My cousin Armin. Tall, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that could cut through pretense. He froze for a heartbeat, surveying the room, Mom, Aunt Navila, Isabella, and finally me. Recognition flickered in his gaze. A hint of understanding? Suspicion? Curiosity laced with concern. What's happening here? His voice was casual, measured, yet each word carried weight. I froze, the wig still awkwardly in my hand, the heels hidden behind the sofa. My mind raced 1,000 miles an hour. How much did he already know? How much had Isabella sensed? How prepared was Mom to introduce him to this truth? Mom's voice broke the silence, calm but steady. He's been exploring who he is. He crowd dresses. It's a part of who he is. The words hit me like a sudden drop. Spoken aloud, no longer secret, no longer hidden in whispers or private moments. My identity, fragile and vulnerable, was now fully exposed. Armin's eyes widened slightly. He stepped closer, scanning me from head to toe. He didn't recoil. He didn't laugh. But the weight of his gaze, sharp, curious, questioning, pressed down on me, electric, undeniable. He didn't scoff, didn't smirk. But the intensity in his gaze was undeniable, sharp and unyielding. So, this explains why he's been different. Armin's voice was quiet, probing. The clothes, the makeup, the heels? Yes, I murmured, voice trembling, almost swallowed by the room. It's who I am when I can be myself. I never wanted to hide it forever, but I was afraid. Isabella stepped closer, her expression softening, yet curiosity still alive in her eyes. I see it now, she said, voice low. The part of you you've been afraid to show. The real you. A flicker of relief surged through me, fragile and fleeting. I dared to hope understanding might settle over the chaos. But the danger wasn't gone. Not by a long shot. Armin's eyes shifted, catching the faint smudge of lipstick still lingering on my lips. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough. You're wearing makeup, he said slowly, testing the waters. Right now. The room seemed to freeze. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Every secret I had protected, every stolen fragment of self-expression, hung in the balance. I could feel the weight of every gaze, Mom's quiet support, Aunt Navila's sharp scrutiny, Isabella's mix of concern and fascination, and now Armin's piercing focus. I swallowed, voice quivering. Yes, I didn't think anyone would find out like this. I just wanted to feel me for a little while. I didn't mean to shock anyone. Armin's eyes softened fractionally, though the intensity never fully left. This changes a lot, he said quietly. Not that it should be wrong, but it does change how I see things. I need time to understand. Relief and dread collided inside me. Part of me wanted to collapse, to let tears fall, and release the tension I'd held for years. Another part quivered at the thought that every word spoken had just opened the door to judgment, gossip, and consequences I wasn't ready for. Then, just as I dared a shaky breath, my phone buzzed. A notification from Isabella. A photo. I froze. My eyes widened. It was the image of me. Heels, dress, wig, makeup, smiling, vulnerable, alive. Isabella's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. I thought you'd like me to remember this moment, she said softly, eyes sparkling with mischief and understanding. Silence swallowed the room. Mom, Aunt Navila, Armin, they all glanced at the phone, then back at me. In that instant, the fragile safety I had clung to evaporated. The The secret wasn't mine anymore. The truth had escaped. The consequences were poised, waiting, inevitable. The apartment felt impossibly small, each breath thick with tension, excitement, fear. My heart hammered like a drumbeat counting down to exposure. Then another sound. A car pulling into the driveway. Another arrival. Another unpredictable variable. My pulse raced, anxiety pressing down like unseen heels. Every hidden part of me teetered on the edge. The front door clicked slowly, deliberately. My stomach lurched. Every instinct screamed, hide, flee, or surrender. The door creaked open, and the storm broke. He stood there. Dad. Tall, commanding, unaware of the chaos inside. His eyes swept the room, Mom, Aunt Navila, Isabella, Armin, and finally landed on me. Every moment, every secret, every stolen fragment of identity I had nurtured, heels, dress, wig, makeup, had led to this inevitable collision. The apartment seemed to shrink, walls pressing closer, the air thick and suffocating. My pulse roared in my ears, each beat a warning. The wig in my hands felt impossibly heavy, weighted with every hidden thrill, every secret moment that had made me feel alive, now laid bare before the person I feared most. Dad's eyes cut through me, sharp, scrutinizing, carrying the quiet weight of judgment. Mom's hand squeezed mine, steadying yet taut with tension. Aunt Navila's gaze flicked between everyone, calculating, skeptical. Isabella had edged closer, a mixture of curiosity and that subtle, knowing smile tugging at her lips. Armin, meanwhile, just raised an eyebrow, half incredulous, half intrigued. I tried to speak, to explain, to defend myself, but my voice fractured, a whisper lost in the charged silence. Dad, my words trembled, barely audible. It's part of who I am when I express myself. I didn't mean for anyone to see me like this. The room held its breath. Every secret, every hidden desire, every forbidden thrill hung in the air like a delicate glass ornament, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. The heels glimmered on the floor, lipstick faint but undeniable on my lips, the wig trembling in my grasp. I was suspended between fear and the desperate need to be seen, to be understood, to be accepted, and I didn't know which force would win. Dad's expression softened marginally, though his voice remained cautious. This is a lot. I don't know what to say or how to react. I nodded, swallowing hard, muscles taut, heart racing. Relief and fear wrestled inside me, the relief of finally speaking my truth, the fear that everything could still collapse in an instant. Mom stepped forward, hand resting lightly on my shoulder. He's telling the truth, she said, her tone gentle but firm. We need to understand, not judge. This is a part of him we can't ignore.